Joining us now at the desk is Philisiwe Buthelezi, CEO at National Empowerment Fund, to tell us more about the company's launch of the new Enterprise Development Fund. Thanks so much, Philisiwe, for joining us today. Well, we've had, as I said, the National Economic Empowerment Fund launch an Enterprise Development Fund, and this really to boost black economic participation. What exactly are we looking at here?
So, Alicia, just to give you a little bit of background, we've been reviewing the implementation of broad-based black economic empowerment in the economy. And one of the things that we identified in that research is that there has been very little focus on our enterprise development initiatives, that is by your big corporates and by the private sector in South Africa. So this is where the concept emanates from. So as the National Empowerment Fund, you know, at times you can sit back and moan about some of these things. We thought we needed to come up with a sustainable way of assisting the corporates in South Africa to achieve that one aspect of their broad-based BE scorecard. So basically what it entails is that I'm sure you're aware that in terms of Code 600, in the Codes of Good Practice, that are those entities that are willing to contribute 3% in NPBT, which is their net profit after tax, that they are eligible to actually earn up to 15 points in their broad-based BEE scorecard.
So that incentive is there. Just how willing is South Africa's private sector?
There are different ways of looking at the non-compliance by the private sector. One of it would be, this is really not part of their core business. Some of these companies have to focus on running their companies. So basically what the enterprise development aspect of the scorecard was saying is that they should also be looking at activities that would look at the creation and development of those black-owned enterprises. So that's where the NEF is coming in to say we have already a well-established track record in actually creating and developing enterprises in South Africa. So we're actually ready now with the private sector in South Africa to offer a sustainable solution towards the creation of those black-owned entities.
Clear emphasis being placed on sustainability here.
Yes.
Let's take a look at just how sustainable a mechanism we're looking at here, because aside from the capital injection that enterprises would now enjoy, I mean, we need to see these businesses getting to operational independence. So how are you facilitating that?
I think when I say we do have a well-established track record, what it means is we do have the technical expertise, we have the skills, we have the infrastructure, because I think 5 years ago, I don't think I would be sitting in front of you here, Alicia, in actually saying that we want to start an enterprise development initiative of this nature. But because of that track record, we are saying we are now well positioned to actually partner with the private. I'm sure you are aware that over the last 5 years that we have disbursed about 2.3 billion rands to about 270 entities in South Africa. So if you were to look at our impairment ratios, especially given the macroeconomic situation and financial situation that countries like South Africa had to go through over the past 2 years, I think the NEF has actually done very, very well.
And it's an actual hand-holding process that gets entered into with these entities?
From the time when you walk into the NEF offices, we'll have the advisory support that we provide to those black-owned entities, is the pre-investment advisory support, and then it goes through our whole corporate governance structures. And when we do invest, there's the post-investment support and mentorship support that we actually give to our enterprises. So we don't just run away.
How do you make sure that the investments are appropriately targeted? What are some of the criteria that you look at?
We have devised something, in the private sector or your commercial banks, they'll be talking about getting a financial return in their investments. What the NEF has come up with is something that we refer to as the empowerment dividend. So as part of our investment criteria, we put a lot of emphasis on the job creation potential of the investment. Are we going to create additional jobs for the economy. We look at the location of the project, plus we also look at whether or not that particular project is going to be in one of the, the key sectors of the economy. So we seem to actually favor those sectors that have been categorized by the government as the key drivers of growth in the South African economy. So is the location, is the geographic spread, we look at the women involvement in the projects, and we also obviously look at the commercial viability
So the enterprise coming under extreme scrutiny here, and I ask the question because while this is moving in line with the strides to facilitating BEE in the country, question is BEE really achieving what it set out to do? Because there's contentious debate on whether or not at this stage BEE is having the desired effect. Your position within that debate?
I would say, which is why I was saying, if you look, because the scorecard has about 7 elements that are attached to it. So there's the ownership, there's the management and control, there's the skills development. I would say in your top 3 or top 4 elements, I think that's where a lot of emphasis has actually gone. But if you look at what has been achieved in skills development initiatives and enterprise development, CSI contributions, there's very little. And the reason for me being skills development, I don't think corporate South Africa will have an excuse. But when it comes to enterprise development, you'll actually see that the first takers on this enterprise development initiative are your multinational companies. One of the top banks is an American bank, I won't mention it by name, is already on board. They were the first ones to actually come into the fund. And one top multinational from Switzerland is already on board. There's also another OEM which is involved in
the list really sounds endless, so we are seeing it, and we are seeing it gain traction. Philisiwe, unfortunately we've run out of time, so we're going to have to leave that conversation there. Thanks so much for having joined us today. Of course, Philisiwe Buthelezi is CEO at the National Empowerment Fund. Let's recap very quickly on what's making headlines in South Africa today. Central bank governors said the possibility of a systemic banking crisis emanating from Europe cannot be dismissed. Markets, however, told the Reserve Bank's ordinary general meeting that there were no obvious threats to domestic financial stability at this stage. In the meantime, growth in credit demand by South Africa's private sector slowed to 5.1% year-on-year in